Hello, I'm James with Nature's Comfort, and today I'd like to showcase our NCB-250-COAL boiler for you. It can heat up to 6,000 square feet, puts out a maximum of 300,000 BTUs per hour, has a 250-gallon water storage tank for lots of heat storage with a firebox capacity of 20.5 cubic feet. Some of the first look features of the NCB-250-COAL are a nice large fuel loading door, a easy to remove ash pan rather than having to dig your ashes out of the firebox. Just pull that out, dump her out, put it back in. We have a easy to read stainless steel 2.5-inch ball float, rather than a sight gauge that you have to keep clean, so you can always know where your water level is at. And for our fuel door, the handle has a blowback safety catch. You open it, and it hits the blowback catch, and you can open it the rest of the way. The fuel door, we've designed to be one of the coolest temperature designs on the market, because we welded the insulation pan, which is filled with 8,000 degree rated vermiculite insulation. We've secured it to the front with only 4 1-inch wide tabs on all 4 sides in the middle that hold it a 1/4 inch off so we don't get heat transferred through to the front. Looking inside, each boiler comes with a manual and a solar battery-powered rechargeable LED motion light. You can mount that anywhere that works best for you. We've got 3/4 inch thick steel shaker grates that are operated by a shaker handle. We're shaking the coal bed to break up those clinkers and get the ash down into the ash pan, and there's also a dump position for when you need to dump it all and start out with a new load. This cast iron weir plate in front is to allow for loading a larger coal bed, and the fire brick that's on either side and in the back is to insulate the coal bed from the steel of the water jacket, so during milder weather you don't risk losing combustion during longer idle times. The NCB-250-COAL is assembled by a robot welder, and I'd like to draw your attention to the quality of the welds, which you can see here where the fuel door jamb meets the firebox. Those are welds that you can't get by hand. Having the consistency and the longevity and durability of a robot welder is unmatched in the welding industry. And also in the back of the firebox, you'll see that the chimney is actually wrapped with the water jacket for where it comes down, and having it come down like it does traps heat up in the top of the firebox where we get a thin layer of gasification that can burn. And for steel thickness, the firebox is 1/4 inch thick and the water jacket is 3/16 inch thick. We have one of the best warranties in the industry. It's a 20-year limited on the firebox and 10 years on the water jacket. When installing your boiler, you're going to want to read your manual completely, of course, but in there you'll find a few different options for preconditioning the rope seal to get the longest life possible. And when filling the water jacket with water, you're going to want to make sure to add Nature's Comfort boiler treatment right away. You don't want water to sit in there at all without water treatment, because the steel is starting to rust and corrode unless it's properly treated. And when you fill it, just do it until the float just starts to rise, and then you're good, because when you fire up the boiler for the first time, the increase in temperature causes the water to expand, and it'll rise higher than where you need it. And you're going to want to drain water at that point, either if you've installed a drain valve or through the bleeder screw on the circulation pump, to bring that float down to where the indicator is right at the bottom of that rubber cap. And that's the proper water level, leaves a little bit of air gap for expansion and contraction. And then, of course, at the end of the season, when you go to shut the unit down, you want to add just enough water to lift the pointer an inch or so above the top of the rubber cap so that there's no air at all inside the water jacket. One of the most important things in maximizing the life out of your Nature's Comfort coal boiler is ash maintenance. Each and every day you're going to want to make sure to stir the ash to keep it loose in specifically and most importantly the front and back corners of the firebox. So right here, anywhere that there's a corner where ash can set and settle and end up getting compacted. If it's not stirred and kept loose, moisture can get behind a spot of compacted ash, and what happens then is, because it's compacted, it's insulated, and the heat from burning the fire can't dry out that moisture, and it just sits there and it festers, and it can rust a hole in the firebox a whole lot sooner than what you'd like. So make sure you keep up on that ash maintenance each and every day to get the maximum life out of your Nature's Comfort coal boiler. Moving back to the control area, you'll see that we have pre-installed all of the controls for you. And in keeping with Nature's Comfort's mantra of simple, heavy duty, that includes our controls. We don't have any expensive electronics that get fried with a lightning storm or a power surge. All that you have to do to install is run your power to the lower outlet. From there, when you plug in this control plug here, that powers the upper outlet, which also powers the control switch. When you turn that on, that sends power to the aquastat. The aquastat, when that calls for heat, that powers a solenoid to lift the intake damper and also run the blower to feed oxygen to build a hotter fire. The aquastat is set from the factory for 180 degrees with a 15-degree differential. And the differential is adjusted by this white dial right here. And it can go from 5 to 30 degrees. And we recommend that it be anywhere from 10 to 15 degrees so you have a long enough run time to burn off any vapors and creosote created during an idle cycle. To talk some more about installation, when you're bringing your underground insulated lines into the boiler, if your pump is pointed up, you're going to want to bring your pipes up through the hole in the floor on the right side. The red line would come in a nice radius right off the pump here, and your blue line would go to the return port right here. If your pump is pointed downward, then you would want to bring your insulated lines up through the floor right here for the red line to get hooked up to the pump and the blue line to then go to the return port. The NCB-250 can accommodate up to 4 zones. It's a tight fit, but it can be done if you got that many buildings. All you would do is replace this 90 with a T, so you could have a pump above and below the T, and the same thing over on the right side. Put a valve here and a T with a pump above and below, and then just do a fitting tree assembly up here with a cross and a T and street 90s for 4 different return ports. And we always recommend that you put an isolation valve on each of your return lines so you can isolate off the entire loop should you need to service a pump or a heat exchanger. Also not a bad idea to put a valve on the supply, or the load side I should say, of the circulation pump, because we already have a valve supplied for you on the supply side. To give you some additional pointers when you're first installing your unit, the circulation pump needs to stay off until your boiler is completely full of water. You don't want to plug the supplied power plug for your pump in until you have fully primed the pump and removed all the air from the cartridge. It is a wet rotor pump. And all wet rotor pumps are lubricated by the water that they're pumping. To do that, you just have to simply remove the bleeder screw, and right underneath there you can see the top shaft of the motor. Just let water run out, then go ahead and plug your pump in, and it doesn't matter, you can plug it into the upper or the lower outlet, and let it run until all the air is purged out and no more air bubbles are coming. Then you can go ahead, unplug it, put the bleeder screw back in, and then run your pump and get your boiler fired up. As far as airflow, down here there is a damper to control how much air the blower feeds for feeding oxygen to build a hotter fire. It comes from the factory pulled all the way down, which is maximum airflow, and depending on the fuel that you're using and the demand that you have, you can loosen the locking screw and lift that up to put the damper more in the way of the airflow, to reduce airflow, to get longer burn times. And that's something that you're going to play around with. That, like I say, all depends on the fuel that you're using and your demand, and you'll be able to find what works best for you. Each of our Nature's Comfort boilers come with the circulation pump already installed, and it has a 3-speed switch, and they all come on speed 3 because we want to see maximum water flow for the highest efficiency in the boiler. And all of our units are designed on computer with a FlowWorks Flow Express module on SolidWorks software, so we can see where the water is flowing, which is how we have placed our ports where they are for the maximum water flow efficiency to get the most BTUs per hour. The pump does run continuously so that whenever the aquastat calls for heat, water's flowing to wipe the heat off the steel, and also so that you have heat in your heat exchangers in the house whenever your home furnace or circulation pumps for a radiant system calls for heat. For the pump, if you ever hear any scrubbing or ticking noise, it could be that your water is more aggressive and abrasive, and the cartridge might need to be replaced. What you can do is simply remove the bleeder screw after you have unplugged, shut the pump off, and you can turn your isolation valves off and remove the bleeder screw to inspect the top of the pump shaft to see if the bearing has wore out. You can take a small flathead screwdriver and stick it right on the end and twist and feel if maybe the shaft has fractured or broken or seized up because of scale. And to replace the cartridge, it's quite simple to just isolate everything off and remove these 4 Allen screws that mount the motor to the volute. And when you pop that motor off, you can just push on the bleeder screw to push the old cartridge out and plug a new one in and rebolt it in place, rather than having to undo the flanges and try to realign everything up. Once you've done it once, you can do it in 5 to 10 minutes. It's quite simple, doesn't take long, and it's a very inexpensive way to replace. The controls area also has a temperature gauge that is installed, and a nice little feature is it's removable, because it's just simply placed inside a dry well. If you don't want to have to bend down to get an accurate reading, you can just pull it out, take a quick look, and pop it back in. Also, as far as insulation goes, we use 6-inch thick R19 fiberglass batt insulation that is around the sides, the front, and it is double layered on the top because heat rises. We want to hold that heat in. And the back is a 2-inch thick foil-faced fiberglass insulation batting. And we also have this extra port here that can be used for anything your creative mind desires. Once in a while, somebody may choose to do like a low water cutoff switch or something like that. That concludes the walkthrough of the NCB-250-COAL. We thank you for watching. We hope to be keeping you warm this winter. And call us if you have any questions. We'd be happy to help you.